Hello guys, I am back with What If Deku was Reincarnation of El Diablo Part 2. So, where we left off is Uraka was under debris and he walked away. And he got his invitation by All Might, saying that he should make better choices. So, let's say the next, before the hologram gets there, he has 2 days to prepare. And let's say Zuko was walking around just trying to find something to do. And he finds a few gang members which have quirks, but instead of burning them or fighting them, he fights them barehanded because unlike the El Diablo, like him, he doesn't want to use his quirk where everyone hates him or his power. So he does this every time he tries to fight people that have the worst quirks, like usual. And he gets stronger that way. So let's say he doesn't really like his power. But then let's skip when he went to UA. So in the morning, it was, let's say it was 1. Yeah, let's say it was 1, where it's dark still. And he was running around getting ready for UA. And while it was 1, he saw a person next to UA High School just walking around. He had a scarf over his neck and a black suit. When Izuku started looking at him, he looked weird. So he thought he was just a person that was just walking around at night. And in an alleyway, he sees a person getting attacked by a villain. And he goes to help. And if you guys didn't know, that person that was walking around at night is Zawa with the black suit with the scarf. Just telling you there. Um, so Izuku starts just fighting the villain, or whatever you guys want to call him. He's just a bad guy. And he just starts fighting. And he wins, obviously. And Azawa saw this and thought he was the villain. And Azawa thought he had a strength quirk because he was only using his fist. So when Azawa was gonna attack Izuku, he uses his cancellation quirk, and he tries to fight Izuku. But as Izuku wasn't mad, he still had a little bit of the green hair, so he tried shifting to a red hair, like always. So now he just has red hair, and Azawa just sees him and tries to attack him. Izuku realizes that there's a scarf over his arm and body, and he just starts freaking out. And this is where his senses just kick over him. He just leaves a huge amount of fire over the scarf. And Ozawa sees the scarf just burning, so he pulls it back when the wind just hitting the scarf, blowing out the fire. And Zawa just thinks that he's just a villain with a fire quirk. But then he realizes how he's using his quirk. Ain't I using my cancellation quirk? And because it's a power of El Diablo, it's not going to be a quirk. So, so Ozawa starts asking Deku, or this person, how are you using your quirk? And Zuko just responds that I don't need to tell you that. Because Zuko knows who he is. Because of his hero work. So Zuko just runs in Ozawa and he says, well, I shouldn't be fighting heroes, but I know you ain't gonna let me go. And he just tries to knock out Ozawa, but Ozawa just dodges all his punches because he doesn't want to use his flames. So Zuko just backs up, and Ozawa says, "Well, no, not the Ozawa. Let's say the guy says, stop it. He was helping me out,' or the girl says, stop it. He was helping me out.' And the girl just starts thanking this person, which is Zuko, and Ozawa sees this, and he's like, oh, okay. And once the girl leaves, Zawa says, I'm sorry about that, but you shouldn't be using your quirk in public. And Zuko said, I wasn't. I use it on you, though. And as I was just still confused about the quirk thing, because he still activated his quirk. And while he was walking back to UA, and Zuko just finding other bad guys, uh, until his, like, the midday of Zuko just entering, I guess. And Zuko's pretty tired at this point, and he's the first one in class, and so he sees somebody on the ground just sleeping. He doesn't mind it, so he just walks right past him, and he just goes in the classroom, and he puts his head down. And then he's just sleeping like a daisy. Him and Ozawa. And who should I say would walk in first? We have many choices. Let's just say a random one. Let's say the guy with the let's say Asu joins the frog girl. She walks in because frogs wake up in the morning really early, and just walks in and he sees um Zuko, but she doesn't really think about anything. While the day's just going back, everyone's just taking a seat, just talking. Zuko's sleeping, and then Bakugo comes in and sees Zuko. He doesn't pay no attention to that. And he just sits down and he's like, huh. Because he knows he got first place. And everyone just walks in, including Momo, Isu, well, Isu was the first one, Jiro, everybody. And Uraraka walks in. Ito was already in there just yelling at Bakugo, let's say, putting his feet on the table. And Uraraka just goes up to Zuko, says, thank you, but you know, how should I put this? Actually, she doesn't really talk to Zuko. She just walks straight to Ida and says, hey. Because let's say Ida helped her out. And Azawa just wakes up and tells everyone to basically be quiet. And he says, this is no time to be having fun. And in the anime, I think they just didn't say that in school. They didn't like say, oh, we're going to the track. I think they all walked, like Azawa said, put this on. And then they did, and then they just walked outside. Everybody just started complaining about they should be in the auditorium. And he says that we're just gonna do a test. And he looks at Bakugo and he says, hey, uh, you're the first place. What was the farthest throw? And he says, you throw it as far as you can with your quirk. And he throws it. And he gets the same score. Let's say everyone gets the same score. Except Izuku, he gets a little bit worse. So he's like with that pervy little guy. Oh, I skipped the locker thingies. Screw it. Let's skip it. Let's say nothing happened. They just got dressed. And they just throw the ball, and let's say he actually get the same amount as the guy with the balls on his head. I forgot his name, but the pervy guy. You guys know what I'm talking about. And Izuku's not using his flames, and Azawa doesn't recognize him because he has green hair. But he doesn't mind it because Izuku's really tired, and he says, if you guys aren't going to be taking this serious, the last person who gets in this thing will get, will get explode. And Zuko's just really tired at this point, and he just starts running, and he just does everything. And Azawa just sees that he's not paying any attention to his work, and Azawa just says, "Hey kid, you should be taking this seriously." And Zuko says, "Why don't you try me?" Because he's really tired. He doesn't know what he's saying right now. And Zawa says, "What?" And Zawa's just getting not that mad, but looking at Zuko and starting to remember a familiar face, but they're both tired right now. And Zawa says, "I am the teacher, and you should listen to me more often," and some stuff like that. And everyone's just looking at Zuko, just yelling at the teacher, just having this rude tone and everything. And he just says, "That's it." And the last test, let's say it was a grip test, and Izuku just knocks out. He just sits on the floor and just goes to sleep. Zawa sees this and just kicks him. And while Zawa was about to kick him, he grabbed his foot. And Zawa was just so surprised because that was a quick reaction. And Izuku stands up and he says, "I'll get up, I'll get up." And like because he's told Zuko to go first because he was being lazy. So let's say that the grip test, he just burns the machine so no one could use it. He just burns it. So Zao sees this and he gets really mad about him burning school equipment. And he said, "Didn't you say we're allowed to use our quirks?" And everyone says, "Yeah, isn't that true?" And Zawa just gets mad at Zuko. And he just sighs and he says, "Yes, I did." And he says, Zuko, would like, no, Zawa says, "Zuko, next time be a little bit more careful with the quirk." And Zawa says, "What's this kid quirk anyways?" Because he never used it at any of his tests. He doesn't know. And he thought he had like something to manipulate or do anything, or because he saw that thing burn, and he just gets a little odd thought of his head, but he can't put his finger on it because he's so tired. And let's say Ida just scolds Deku, just starts yelling at Deku, telling him that he shouldn't be bad at the teacher. And this is like when Azawa's just like grading their test. And Azawa just sees this and just leaves it alone. And let's say Ida grabs Izuku's shoulder and Izuku just like burns his hand. And Izuku was like he doesn't like being touched. And Azawa just tells Ida to go to the nurse and tells Zuko that you should stop it. because Zuko's just like getting a little bit more mad. And Zawa says that this is taking a little bit harder than I thought because of this kid. And let's say that All Might was looking into the kids to see if who should be the next One for All candidate. Let's say that no one has One for All right now because he doesn't know who to pick. Let's say that he was watching everything. And he says, "Don't I remember that kid from somewhere?" And they were told to, they get the scores. Zuko got halfway dead last, on top of the pervy guy. So let's say that he doesn't get kicked out because he wanted Zuko to get kicked out. And he said everyone's allowed to go home, and Ozawa sees All Might in the corner, just peeking like a pervert, basically. And Ozawa just walks towards him and just says, "What are you doing looking at kids?" And he says, "Haha, nice joke." And Ozawa says that one kid looks familiar. Ozawa says, "Yeah, he really does." And he does have his reputation on the streets too, so they would know of him of that. So as they were going home, Zuko walking his same route home. But they say that no one would really want to follow him from walking home because they didn't really like him of his attitude. And he was just really tired. So instead of him just going home, he just tries to go in the forest, let's say. Not even the forest, like go in the park just to go sleep real quick. And let's say Todoroki was following him. Yes, Todoroki. And he sees Zuko just run and jump in the bush. And Todoroki was waiting for a good 2 hours until he just said screw it and he walks over and he sees Zuko just sleeping. And he said, huh. So Todoroki just picked him up over by his shoulder and just started walking. And let's say that Todoroki just put him on top of a bench while he was just reading a book. And Izuku just wakes up and drooling and like he had his neck back and then he just like he doesn't stand up but he's just still sitting like with the drool on his face and he wipes it. He looks to the right and he sees Todoroki sitting reading a book. And Todoroki, before anything happens, Todoroki asks a question that, what is this quirk? And Izuku was still surprised of him waking up and he just tries to go back to sleep. And Todoroki says, what is your quirk? And skipped on asking. And Izuku said it's a fire quirk. And Todoroki is kind of surprised because he had a hunch. That's why he followed him. And he says, how powerful is your quirk? And Izuku just said, why do you want to know? And Todoroki was kind of, how can I say this? Todoroki was kind of trying to see if Endeavor had another son behind his back or something. No, because he said he had four quirk and you want to see how powerful it was. And Zuko said it's not that powerful at all. And he said, why don't you show me? And he says, we're in a park. And they said, that's fine. And Todoroki just blasts a bunch of ice at him. And Zuko does see this, but instead of him dodging or jumping out of the way because he couldn't, because basically he was right next to him just sending ice. on the floor tells him, he just starts burning the ice. Todoroki sees this and he says, huh, well, it seems powerful. Because for him it's really hard to burn the ice. And they just start going at it. And Zugu just says, why are you even fighting me anyways? Todoroki says, because I don't want to see him no more. And Zuko says, wait, him? Who's him? And Todoroki says, Endeavor. And Endeavor, and Zuko's thinking, who's Endeavor? And he just clicks in his head, Endeavor Todoroki. And he's like, oh, you're Endeavor's son. He says, yes, but why don't you like him? And they just start talking. And he pulls out he burnt this thing, he left me a scar. And he says, instead of saying that, oh, well, it's your quirk, he tells him that his quirk is very dangerous. Fire is very, very dangerous. But it's, but it's not, but it's not who's gonna use it. It's how are you gonna use it? And just telling Todoroki that it's basically your fire. And Todoroki says, but no matter what, I'll still see him. And he says, well, if you see him, you're basically gonna see yourself next. And he just gaps, and Zuko just starts walking away. Because he just realized it's late. And Todoroki just starts walking his way because he doesn't really care about Endeavor. Until he's trying to learn his fire a little bit better. And when he gets home, he just starts practicing on his fire. And let's say it's like 9 by this time. So they're just practicing. He's just practicing on his fire and never sees flames. And he just sees Todoroki just using it. And he says, why now? Why are you using your flames now out of anything? Not even I could get through. Who made you? And Endeavor's just thinking, well, Izuku walks home and he sees his mom saying surprise on his first day of UA. And he says she couldn't really cook anything because you were too late and the food got cold. And Zuko said it's fine. And let's say that Zuko made something that Inko didn't teach him. He made Mexican food called quesadillas, which is basically a tortilla with cheese on it, and that's it. And he made that like probably six, three for his mom and three for him, and he gets water for him as well. And she says, "Let's just eat this." And his mom never showed him quesadillas or anything, so he's wondering. And she asks, "How do you learn to make these?" And he's just surprised. He says that he just learned from his friend, and he said, "Oh," he says, "Oh, what's your friend's name?" And he really doesn't know what to say next because he says an excuse. He says Todoroki helped him make it. Todoroki, huh? I wonder who's that. You never had friends except that Bakugo whenever you were fourth grade. And he says, yes, I just barely got him. And Inko's just still, I mean, barely got him. I barely got to be his friend today. And Zuko just blowing his fuse because he almost blew his cover of his old life because quesadillas are Mexican food. But he just says he's going to his room, not trying to do anything else. The next day comes, and they, well, Asuku just starts walking and to UA, and instead of wearing his uniform, He decides to wear regular clothing. And he walks into the classroom with his jacket and his tank top. But his mom doesn't know he wears these. He thinks he's wearing school uniform with natural shirt and everything. He doesn't know that Izuku wears this. Because Izuku feels comfortable with this. Because of his past life, which is El Diablo. And and everyone's saying what happened. Well, not what happened, but looking at him just weird. And they see. Was it that day when the paparazzi came? No, let's just say it's not. So they walk. Zuko walks in, and he just goes into the classroom, and everyone just Ida just comes up to him and says, "That's not the school uniform." And he says, "My school uniform got burnt when I was using my quirk by accident. It just happened." And Ida does not believe this. So Ida just starts yelling, and Azawa comes in, and he says, "No, not Azawa. All Might comes in, and he sees Izuku with clothing, and he thinks that, oh, who's this kid? And he just realized that, oh, it's Izuku, and because he remembers everyone's name in UA, or Class 1A, my bad. And he says, everyone just get your costume ready. And Izuku just says, oh yeah, costumes. And then he tells Ida while he's still standing up that this is my costume for today. And Ida's just surprised, and he goes with it. He doesn't go with it, but he he thinks that it really is his costume. And everyone's just trying to talk to All Might, and All Might just goes to the training course or where the bomb is and stuff. And they see Izuku's hero costume. A jacket, some not saggy, but big pants. And no, let's just say jeans and with boots. And everyone sees this, and let's say Momo's smart, and he says, wow, those shoes, are those from let's say he had a shirt that says Mexico, and everyone's reading it, and he says, "What store says Mexico?" Like dummies, and then they realize that it's a country again, and they're like, "Oh yeah, isn't that country?" And like, I only know because like, think about it. If we think countries next to us, we're thinking about Asia and Mexico and Canada, which I live in the USA. With Japan, it's probably North Korea, America, Canada, but never Mexico. But Momo knows that it says Mexico, and it says that's a country. And they're saying, "Oh, Zuku, you're from," and then they just look at him, and let's say the girl that shoots acid quirk just being racist and saying you're from Mexico, and he says, "No, I'm not," and she's just surprised because everyone just realized what she did, just discriminated against a race because of a shirt, and everyone just he's quiet. And All Might's just surprised that she would say something like that, and he just tries to blow it off by saying, "All right, it's time for the test and the heroes versus villains." There we go. That's what it was called. So he throws in a throws in a bucket with full of paper with everyone's names on it, and he says Uraka and Izuku, and the opponents they choose their ones. And the opponents for Raka and Izuku were also drafted to Ida and Baku were Team A. Let's say that, and they were Team B. So let's say this time the roles were actually no, the roles are still the same. Which them trying to run in, but instead of running in, let's say that Izuku sees a window all the way up top, and he just starts flying up there with his flames, and first he tells Uraka to hop on his back, and they just fly up to that window, just natural. And everyone just sees this and says, "Wow, wow!" And let's say Bakugo ran past this floor building, just waiting for them at the bottom, and they walk above him, like sneaking around, and they weren't sneaking around. They're just walking casually, just not noticing Bakugo was under them, and they just find the bomb, which is Ida's watching over, and they're just surprised, saying, "Where's Bakugo?" And he tells Uraraka to be careful, and instead of instead of Ida, just because he didn't hear no explosions, no fire, no nothing, no explosion, so he thought that Bakugo was opening the door. So he just starts walking up to the door. Says, "Bakugo, you should be more careful. And we should be protecting the hall." And they see Uraka and Zuko, and Ito just starts laughing like a villain, and he Zuko just punched him in the face and just burns his engines a little bit, it wouldn't like so it wouldn't be working that much. And while Baku is still downstairs, he hears Hero Team wins, and he's just still surprised. And he's like, "Oh, well, they touched the bomb. Let's just say that." Because Ito was already taking care of, and there's two people, so Uraraka could have touched the bomb. So they just start walking out, and Baku was just super mad that he didn't get a fight. And they walk back to Amai, and you know how Momo says Izuku had a great plan. They flew above Bakugo without them noticing each other, and he went straight above, and he did that swiftly as possible. And Bakugo ran forward and tried to fight them first, which separated his partner. Uraka was MVP, and Izuku Ito was doing well, but he took too much taking the evil laughs and stuff. And everyone's fight just goes. Bakugo's still mad that he didn't fight, so he's talking to that red haired dude. I forgot his name. How did I forget his name? So they just start walking out, and Uraka and Ida just start walking towards him, which is Ida's engines are no longer that burnt, so he could just walk normally. And let's just say that they just all start walking, and Todoroki walks his own way, and he just sees Zuko, and he's like, "Oh, I'm going to my house. This time I'm not going to talk to him." And they walk to their house, and instead of Zuko leaving them, separating because Bakugo was right behind, and he just skips on walking until Bakugo went to his street because they live right next to each other. Let's just say that. So when that happened, Zuko just turned to the left to an alleyway, and with his secret stash in a certain other alleyway, he just glows his red hair with the. Let's just put a cool animation. He glows his hair with the thing and just starts changing, and he has red hair now, and he keeps his reputation up. He starts fighting the gangsters, and now he's known by El Diablo, and he's wanted now by villains, by heroes, by gangsters, and he he shows who's boss. And let's say he fought a few heroes, but he swiftly escapes before more could come. And let's say right now he starts walking towards an alley, and he sees he sees a hero fighting a villain, and he was waiting to see what would happen. And the villain lost. Instead of the hero taking him to custody, he takes a picture of him, and that got Izuku really mad, because that's not what a good person would do. And he thought about himself, but not as a picture, but as him looking down on others. And that got him really furious. And he just starts fighting the hero and knocks him out and realizes that he just took down a hero. And this hero calls for reinforcements. And let's say Comedy Woods um was there, and this hero was that was calling people, let's say on purposely, let's say Asu was walking by, because I don't know any other names, and he sees a guy with red hair, and her quirk's a mutation quirk, and let's just say that she can't really get blamed for her quirk just working. She could just say that she was fighting normally. So she just starts jumping in and starts helping Coward Woods and this other Flash hero. Let's just say this hero had a quirk that bent his finger and like cracked his finger, and it just made a loud noise. Let's just say that. And while he's being attacked, he just starts getting really, really mad. Not by everyone, but his red hair just starts getting redder and redder, and until he just almost loses control, and he just gets really mad with his eyes just turning red and everything just going in fire, burning Comedy Woods and hurting Asu. Plus the guy with the thing, he just hurts everyone, and he starts burning the alleyway sides. And people see this and start recording the alleyway, and they just see a guy with red hair, and then Zuko just puts his face over his hand over his face, and he just jumps off, jumping over, doing parkour out of the alleyway. And everyone's injured, and people call 911, plus the heroes. And they take Asu and everyone to recover. And they take the villain that the other hero was fighting um, to the hospital. And then, because he also got burned because he was laying there. And let's say he got 3-degree burns. And Zuko's just mad at himself, almost losing control again. And he just starts going home, and his hair just turns back to green while he goes back to the alleyway where his home's next to, and just starts changing back. And yeah, he's back home. He tells his mom that he's tired and he needs to go to his room, and his mom insists that he drinks water, and he says okay. Because Inko's the only family he has right now, because as El Diablo, family means everything to him. And if anything happens to Inko, he would go on a rage of attacking everybody. So let's say that Zuko just goes to his room and just relax and just leaves for the next day. And let's say that Azawa comes back in the room, and they just start teaching and stuff. And they no first forget what I said. Okay, so let's say Inko walks back, and he actually has a note to sign his parents' permission, so he go on this field trip for this exam. Which this is the villain attack, and so Zuko gets that sign, just goes to bed, and next day he just let's say the cafeteria starts early, and he sees paparazzi outside, and he just sees this paparazzi outside, and he's like, whatever. And let's say before time, Zuko got this note by a gangster, I guess, or villain, telling him that there's gonna be money and stuff if we do this one job, but he didn't want to do it, and he took down the gangster, and he just walked home like normal. But let's go back where we just were, where Azuku's going to school with the paparazzi in front and him just walking right past them, and they're all asking certain questions, And cafeteria or lunch starts early because they're about to go to entrance exam. So they see Zuko right there. Many people spread out, but then they see Todoroki just sit right next to him. And while Todoroki's just sitting right next to him, he says, "Hey," and he says, "Hey," back with both blank faces. And let's just say that they were just both surprised. Well, he was surprised that someone actually sit next to him. And Ida was gonna sit next to him, but then he saw Ochako sitting with Momo, and he wanted to go sit next to them because Momo was Momo was his other friend from the old school. And while that's happening, um, there's Todoroki and Izuku's just talking, and let's say Jiro, I think her name was, with the ears, just walks up to them and says, "Hey," because she didn't really care, and everyone just starts causing a ruckus because the alarm goes off, and everyone is just running until someone spills food on Izuku, and Jiro saw this right next to him, and Todoroki saw this, and they just see Izuku just getting mad, and they just look at his hair, and it turned a little bit of red, and Todoroki saw this, and Jiro saw this, and they were both surprised, and Zuku just starts burning the sides of the rooms and telling everyone to chill out and relax, and they just started getting scared. And everybody in class 1A thought this was Todoroki's doing, but they saw it was Zuku's. Everyone looked, plus Baku just seeing his little red hair, and he just starts getting a little bit scared because he thought he was gonna trap them all in there and roast them alive. And Zuko just turns right back to normal with that little bit of hair just turning right back before everyone could actually really see. So Asu looks at Zuko, just calming the fire, and Asu just doesn't really think about it, and he thinks of that one time of the day before that he tried helping and it was fire. And then he looks at his hair and he says, "Oh, it's not red, it's green." And Asu's like, "Does he have time to dye it?" He says, "Oh no, it would at least show a little bit of red." And let's say that everyone just calms down, and teachers just start telling the students that it was no, yeah, the teachers just start telling the students it was probably Props Rossi that actually came into school and stuff. And let's say that the bus arrived with the paparazzi all around it, and Zuko sees everyone there. Actually, no. Let's say they went in the classroom and tried to choose their class presidents. People were still scared of Zuko, but they thought of him as a kind soul. So Todoroki, Ida, well, not Ida, Todoroki, Uraka, and Jiro, and half of those people decided to make them to the class representative, Momo and Uruku or Zuku, not Ida, because he was kind of annoying. And instead of them being chosen after just going back to classes, because Izawa told them to. And then they said, "Okay, everyone just walk out to the buses," and they didn't go in line because Ida wasn't the charge. And Momo says that Momo says to Uraka or Invisible Girl that he's also gonna be the other class president. He's kind of scary, and everybody starts telling. Well, the Invisible Girl just starts telling everyone this because nobody really thinks of the Invisible Girl, not even Izuku. And And whenever they all went on the bus, they're actually kind of scared of Zuku a little bit more because they remember about the cafeteria and what the girl was telling everybody. And let's just say that they're just talking all about their quirks, and Todoroki says there's his chance. And he doesn't tell Zuko. Let's say Asu just gets like a little bit curious and says, Zuko, what's your quirk? And Zuko's not paying attention, and he's just thinking of his past life, like soaping over it. I mean, soaping. What am I doing? Like being sad or depressed. There we go, depressed over that. And he just comes to a realization that they're talking to him. And they said they didn't say anything. They just started laughing a little bit and told Zuko, "What's your quirk?" And they just relieved that bad attention against Zuko. They said, "Oh, my quirk is destruction," and they're just surprised. And they thought, "Is it really destruction? What's wrong? What's wrong? Like, what was gonna happen to this whole bus?" And they just started getting scared. And Zuko says, "No, that's a joke. Like because he's just trying to scare everyone even more." And everyone just starts going on relief and says, "What is your real quirk?" And he says, "It's fire manipulation." And everyone says, "Really?" Because Zuko just thinks about this right now and he says, "Yeah." And telling everybody this really calms everyone down, except Azawa. Azawa knows that it's not a quirk, and it's something more. And he told every teacher about it. And they see everybody just relax. No one gets in a line or anything. Everybody's just sitting there because Zuko's president. He says he doesn't really care. Sawa just says you should be a little bit more responsible, and he just really doesn't care about Ozawa because they have a little bit of a mixed feelings and everything. And let's say that Zuko walks in without doing what Ozawa says about being responsible and getting them in the line. And Ozawa just sighs and tells everyone to get in the line. And they did. And Ito was the one that told them. And let's just say that everyone walks in and they see Uraraka's favorite hero, but Izuku didn't care, so he didn't bother to get the name. He just called him she. Well, I don't know if it's a she or a he, because I'm not trying to assume genders. Just call him it. There we go. He says, "So, are you a spaceman?" And everyone just starts cracking up, and Uraraka just gets a little bit mad. Zuko is like, "What's wrong?" He's wearing an astronaut costume, and everyone starts laughing again. And he says, my quirk is really dangerous. I don't think you should be making fun of it. And in a dark, serious tone, Zuko says, mine is too. And everyone just looks surprised, and Zuko just snaps right back out of it. And he says, yeah, mine is too. And they see a portal come by. And this portal just opening, and they just see a bunch of villains, and Zawa just going in trying to fight everybody. And they tell everyone to wait up, and let's say Ida does escape earlier, like Ida does do this earlier, and he goes running trying to go catch and tell the teachers this. And let's just say that Zuko was putting fire through the portal, so he wouldn't get teleported himself. And uh, Todoroki saw this, and he started doing the same because he's no longer scared of fire. And then Todoroki sees that two people are just doing this, just burning up the portals. Let's say It's just going through the portals, but it is making the portal smaller, and it's pushing it backwards. And while this is happening, Shiragi says that he can only teleport a few people. Let's say the few people were hold on, let's see if you guys could remember these names. Um Toroki was not teleported. Koda was teleported. Jiro was teleported. Ito was running. Baku was teleported. Asu was teleported. Well, Asu, let's say she stayed because she was next to Midoriya. Um, Manetta, that's the pervy name. That's it. Was teleported. Jiro was teleported. Like I said, Sato was not teleported. So the only people that are not teleported is Todoroki, Izuku, Asu. Let's say Jiro too. Just for the plot and me trying to figure out how to do next to make it a little bit harder on me. So they all see them not get teleported because they're right next to Izuku or Todoroki. And Shigiri tells is that his name? Shigiri? Tells the guys with the hands all over his body, the weirdo that's obsessed of scratching his neck, that guy. Just tell them that only a few people only got teleported. He says, what? There's 2 people up there with flame quirks that didn't get teleported at all. And the guy's just surprised, and they see Jiro, who else is it? Todoroki, Midoriya, Asu not get teleported, and everybody else did. And they decided that they're gonna run and go help Izawa. And with Shiraki just is that his name? Shiraki? Starts. Did I mix them up? Okay, the guy with the hands, which I think is Shiraki, is scratching his neck, and he says, what a problem or what a pain," and he starts telling everyone to start fighting, and the Nobu's for not not the Nobu's only for All Might, so they're just waiting for him to come because they thought he was originally going to be there. And let's say that everyone's getting fought left and right, and everyone's still on the thing, and Bakugo comes back real quick. And they see that he tries to blow the guy with the hands. And let's say that he tells Anomu to attack Bakugo. Bakugo just gets slammed to a wall. One punch. And Zuku doesn't really care about Bakugo because of his thing, but he realized that he should probably do something about it while he's fighting the other small villains. Which Zuko's getting a little mad because they're being kind of annoying, and he just starts attacking, which they're being a little bit more annoying. So then let's just say he just gets enraged with red hair, and everybody sees this. Asu, Izawa, Todoroki, Jiro, they just see his red hair just pop out. And they just Izawa just says, "Oh, it's that kid." Oh, well, that makes a lot of sense. Without like a tone, and Asu says, "Tim," and she's just getting that flashback of her being attacked in the alleyway, like literally yesterday, because she's already healed up, and she is scared because she saw how the villain got burnt up, and she doesn't want to go through what he got through, so he just stays. She just stays back, and he just starts burning everything, and the no just starts. Well, no, the guy with the hand cell, the Nomu start attacking Izuku, and Zuko just starts getting punched left and over, and let's just say that everybody sees this and try to stop the new, and they all failed, which everyone gets knocked back. Which is the small villains are almost all done. They just need to fight the people that are out in the wild with the water and stuff. And Bakugo just wakes up and starts attacking the Nomu again. Nomu just punching it, and All Might comes. And instead of him fighting, he just sits back and sees that kid with red hair. And he's kind of surprised. And he just waits back and he sees the other heroes come in too, and he says, "Everybody wait." And Zuko just starts attacking the Nomu again, and then of him just pure rage just starts burning everything, and then he just gets knocked into the wall again. And instead of him just like burning everything in his path, he just transformed into that thing in the picture in the back, which is El Diablo's power. Everybody sees this big giant skeleton, and he just starts burning the Nomu. And he burns the Nomu, and they just realize that Zuko is dangerous. And when the Nomu was finally killed by Zuko, he starts seeing Shiraki, one of them too, and he just starts letting a huge amount of flames just going at him. And they teleport away, and then the rest of the people start attacking him, and they said El Diablo, El Diablo, because the villains knew him. And everybody just realizes that name. It's a anti villain or something. And they see Azawa and tell Azawa to use his quirk on him, and he says, "I can't." Remember? And he says, "Oh, that's right." And he says, "What is that thing?" And they said, "I don't know, but it's quite dangerous." And I guess half of the heroes trying to attack Zuko, or El Diablo, let's call him now. And they're just starting to get worried because now the dome is starting to get heated up. Let's say that. Let's say that the dome just starts getting heated up. And while the dome is just getting heated up, is everyone starts feeling hot and hot. And Zuko's just trapped in his mind. Because in his dreams, I never said that he saw. I mean, in his memories, I never said that he saw the El Diablo's true perspective. And he only saw himself attacking him as El Diablo, I said. And him as a prison. Let's just say that. Let's just say all that. And I'm not changing the story because I never said that he was El Diablo, the guy. I'm just saying that he was Zuko, if you guys remember. And he gets this dream about him. You guys could come all back and see the first part video. And he had this dream of El Diablo. Let's say that he's in his mind right now. And he sees El Diablo's true face and everything. And he just starts remembering the part where he died. And he realized that he had a family. Like the Suicide Squad. That was his family. And he was just worried about them. About if they actually survived, they actually defeated. And this engulfed Zuko with flames. This got him really mad. And this like bursted in flames even more. And he just started losing it now. And with El Diablo, the water in the water zone just starts like heating up. The fire in the fire zone just starts burning every other part. And everyone just decides to run out, including the villains. And the heroes are kind of surprised with this happening. And All Might just deciding to punch Zuko. He did. He punched him really hard. And he just starts punching him and punching him and punching him, and Zuko's just getting mad and mad and mad and mad. And he just burns All Might. And All Might's just feeling this, getting hurt real bad. And then All Might actually just decides to use all his force, like with all his power, just punches Zuko. And he did. He just punched him, and Zuko just got knocked right out. Which is, the room is still very hot, and All Might's now steaming. Which is, the brick guy comes in and just covers Zuko and All Might. And everyone's just wondering if All Might's okay, and they just start thinking that Zuko's dangerous now, and he's a villain, because he is. And let's say that everybody walks up to Zuko. Let's say he does go bald, and they see his tattoos. Well, no, let's not say he goes bald. Let's say that they just see his tattoos, and they just start realizing the tattoos, and they're like, when did he ever get this? Did he have this right now, before, or it was just like a side effect? And they're kind of surprised. Zuko just knocked out there. They take him to a prison, and Nezu never talked to Zuko, but he he's heard what he's done now, because they matched him of the school of El Diablo attacking villains and gangs and everything. So they even reported him with Ezu the other day. Ezu confirmed this too. And they just said, how did no one realize that he just had red hair? And Asu is just kind of disappointing herself, knowing that he looked a little bit resembling Aizawa too. And they're all like, what a fool I was to not realize that it could have been a villain. And Nezu says, well, this is going to go on the paparazzi because they're coming back from school. And let's say the paparazzi are still there. But knowing that the heroes run out of UA and started helping another place. And let's just say that whenever they're coming back, paparazzi sees Zuko in cuffs, basically. And Zuko just realizing that he got caught of all his sins that he's been doing nothing. But he hasn't killed anyone yet, except the slime monster. But that was by accident. And All Might walks up to him and says, can I at least ask you whatever happened to that slime monster? And Zuko looks down and he says, it's disposed of. And All Might just getting enraged a little bit. And he talks to Nezu, which in still in handcuffs. He tells Nezu about he's actually frightened of his power and he doesn't want to use it. And Nezu gets that because many people have dangerous powers, like Bakugo's, Endeavors. He's basically Endeavors, like other part. And Toroki saw this, Jiro saw this, Bakugo. Well, I think I'll say Bakugo saw this, but still not. Azawa saw this. Half of the heroes saw this, but not the other students. Asu saw this, but they're all called into Nezu's office and told them not to tell anyone. Plus the teachers. So the only people that know about this is the teachers, Jiro, Toroki, uh, Asu, anybody else, and they were all told not to tell anyone, and they let Zuko. Well, Nezu let Zuko scot free, but he has to pull up his act and no more villain hunting or gang things. And he says he can't control it, and he says just at least try. And let's say Zuko can control it, but he doesn't want to, because each time he gets his name on the streets, he gains more power. He feels more powerful, and he remembers that one time, and he lets down a tear. And that tear was from the night where his family died. And because now he has memories of the Suicide Squad, and he remembers him just telling them to pull the trigger and him just blowing up. And it's just so surprising that he cared for somebody that much, or people so much. So he agrees to keep it under control. And let's say he goes back to school or back home to Inko, and let's say that they have a week off from this villain attack, but they didn't tell anyone about the villain attack except their parents. And no, let's not even say that except their parents. They don't tell anyone about the villain attack. So then let's say that they do create dorms to be safe and everything way earlier in the anime, but they still haven't had the hero, or what's it called, the heroes track, where they do the races and the flags. That one, the tournament. There we go, the hero tournament. Let's just say that we're gonna do that one after the villain attack. Yeah, after the villain attack. So they start making the dorms, and they made the dorms already, and they started walking with Zuku. Actually, was with Zawa and All Might for Zawa to be near him and try to figure out what's his thing, because they have 3 weeks off. And let's just say that everything goes normal, and let's say it was time for Bakugo's house, and they enter Bakugo's house, and Bakugo's mom just says, "Hey, Zuko," because he knows him from Inko because they're friends. And Zuko says, "Hey," and Azawa and All Might are kind of surprised that Bakugo knows Zuko. Well, Zuko knows Bakugo's mom because they haven't talked in class or anything. They only fought in. Well, they didn't fight at all because Bakugo didn't do anything. So they started talking to Zuko. Bakugo was talking to Zuko, and they let them in. And let's say that that Bakugo wasn't there at the time. Well, he was there at the time, but he was just in his room, just relaxing, sleeping because of the injuries he's gotten. And Izuku could just heal up back really quickly. And Bakugo's dad comes out of the kitchen to sit on the couch with Izuku standing and Zawa and All Might sitting down. And Izuku's dad, I mean Bakugo's dad, just realizes that it's that kid that saved him that one day. Because Zuko still has the red hair from the other day, because he's still a little bit mad that he showed everyone. So he says that, "Aren't you that kid that saved me in the alleyway? Thank you." And they're all surprised, and it's always like, "Oh, this is gonna be way easier than I thought," because the other parents were stressed to get him inside the UA dormitories, and they said that Zuko is just here to to observe what we're doing. That's it. But they're actually trying to not go out of control again. And there's always trying to control his quirk to work on him. And let's say that Bakugo is just talking to Zuko, and Ozawa just says that we want your son to come to the dormitory, Bakugo. And his mom was thinking about it, and he says if he's there, then of course I'll allow it. And they haven't went to Izuku's mom yet, so they just says, of course she's gonna be there. And they Izuku looks at Izawa, and he doesn't have a smile. He's just looking at he just looking at her like in his normal face, and he just says, "Yeah, I'm gonna be there." and everyone was just surprised. And let's say that Zuko was kind of nervous because he still remembered the house layout and how close was Bakugo's room to this thing. And he realized that him saying, "Of course I'm gonna be there," Bakugo's gonna realize his voice. And Bakugo runs out the room and he says, "No way I'm going to the dormitory." And and Bakugo's mom just smacks him behind his head. Zuko just smiles a little bit, and All Might just shrugs Zuko to like don't laugh, and he says, "Now we're definitely putting you in there." And he says, "Yeah," and then they just walk away. The last person to go was Zuko's mom, and they went into Zuko's house. Well, not house, but apartment, and they realized that Zuko was there, and they just said, "Yeah, blah blah blah." Inko didn't want to, but Zuko says, "Don't worry, I'll be all right, and I'll never let anything happen. This will always be my home." And Inko agrees with it because Zuko cares about his mom, and his mom knows that a lot. And while Zuko was thinking, and he says, "Oh, would you guys like a layout of my room so you guys could put anything?" And Azawa hasn't told anyone this yet, but he was actually looking inside the students' rooms to make it look perfectly. And he looks over at All Might, and All Might just kind of laughs a little bit. And he says, "Okay." So he gives full permission of Azawa to look in his room, and sort of like sneaking. He just looks at it and he just realizes a few things. He has he has a bed. He has a table. And he has some figurines of certain things, which is always trying to read. But Zuko says, "Don't read that, please." And he says, "Okay." And he looks at the wall and he sees a skull, and he just doesn't really pay any mention of that. And then he looks at the ground and picks up a burnt toy. And All Might looks at this in shock because he realizes that it's half of his like head burnt off, and All Might just looks at Izuku and he just opens his eyes wide and he says, "Yeah, I'm not your number one fan. What do you want me to do here?" And he was just kind of shocked. And he says, "You know what? I think this is the end of our tour here." And everyone got in the dormitory the next day, and that'll be in the next video. Thank you all for listening. If I messed up, I'm sorry, but this is part 2 of What If Zuko was Reincarnation of El Diablo. So, bye bye. See you guys later. How do I pause this?